think I will just dive right in today. Um, First off, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your busy day today to join this webinar. My name is Doreen Dickman. I work here with Avolution, and today you'll be seeing a brief demonstration of ABACUS. Now, for those of you who already know about us, we're happy and we're grateful for that. Glad you're on the call. But for those of you with us for the first time, I just wanted to share a little bit about ourselves, Avolution, and the software that we produce called ABACUS. And then I'll show some general diagramming and modeling and look at some basic road mapping techniques. But I want to do those two activities in relation to one important part of any organization, the organization's business capabilities. And then after the demonstration, we can open the floor for questions. Avolution's been around in the enterprise architecture realm for over 20 years. In fact, ABACUS 12, released just about 10 days ago, is the current version, and it's the result of our continued research and improvement efforts, much of which is based off of our users' input. ABACUS is a highly capable tool set for managing enterprise architecture. So scattered in this placemat are a few of the quantitative benefits and the honors that we've collected through the years. In the reviews and critiques of the top-tier analyst organizations, we consistently rank high and in fact have been #1 over the past several years. ABACUS and its graph-powered repository is purpose-built to work a lot like the way architects think. So it helps architects produce high-value information and insights about their enterprise to the stakeholders who need it, resulting in very quantitative outcomes like productivity increases and risk-associated savings. Now, we have thousands of users in over 100 countries, and we have offices worldwide to support our users and their organizations. And here are just a few of the companies we serve globally. But the call out is not really being about the name dropping. When you look across these columns, think about the variety of industries or market verticals that ABACUS is helping. And there's even a couple industries we didn't have room for, like healthcare and energy. And we can do this work in any industry because ABACUS is non-prescriptive in terms of architecture frameworks and notations. Instead of a rigid data model that's difficult to map to or would dictate how your interdependencies should be, ABACUS is wholly configurable in those regards. But to accelerate your deployment, we do offer many architecture frameworks, notations, and content right out of the box. But again, you have final say. You adjust, you add to, and you can prune any framework you choose. You can combine frameworks, and you can even develop your own. So ultimately, you're aligning ABACUS to your organization's model and reporting needs, not the other way around. And that's the reason so many industries are comfortable choosing ABACUS. No matter how your organization expresses itself in terms of its people, processes, and technologies, and the interdependencies you want to capture between them, you can freely represent that and manage changes to that within your own team at any time. Now, we designed ABACUS intentionally to help you produce quick wins. Now, I don't mean to oversimplify enterprise architecture as a practice because it's not simple. But one of the things that enterprise architects should be able to do is simplify the complex. So not only for ourselves in EA and the larger IT crowd, also for those non-technical stakeholders in need of decision-making information. So to bring some welcome simplification to the complexity of managing an enterprise architecture, let's break it down into 3 parts: understanding, analyzing, and then communicating. ABACUS's centralized repository underpins it all. and it's key to helping you and your stakeholders understand the enterprise, as well as helping you as architects show value very quickly. So for starting up and also for keeping your repository fresh, you'll have ready-to-use integrators, a very robust REST API to push and pull data, and the capability to import from a number of popular file formats. Now, showing value quickly doesn't require all of your data, and it doesn't even require a huge data set. You can show value quickly by focusing in on even a small set of your enterprise information. So perhaps just your applications and the business processes that use those applications, and some relevant information about those components in your architecture to help you form some analytics and actionable insights. So to sum this up, in ABACUS, you're managing portfolios in a more interconnected way as both raw data and as components in architecture artifacts. And you're doing this all in a centralized data store as opposed to separate and independent two-dimensional spreadsheets and drawings. And your main benefit is understanding that elements in your architecture are independent components used by, required by, or otherwise supporting possibly many other components, and that the components in the repository are reusable when modeling systems of business and systems of business enabling technology. Now, another way you can achieve quick wins is through the powerful analytics features that ABACUS puts right into your hands. Built-in simulators and ready-to-use algorithms offer up portfolio perspectives from financial TCO to availability, calculating business and technical fit, and really that's just scratching the surface. Because with our no-code visual algorithm composer feature, you can create algorithms for analysis that aligns with your organization's reporting needs, such as department-specific KPIs and metrics, and then you can aggregate, split, and move that architecture information up, down, and across your entire enterprise. You can even set values and derive new values where and intelligently fill gaps where data might be missing. It's the rich analytics capabilities of ABACUS gives you the power to quantitatively prove, or yes, even disprove, the benefit or value of a proposed change. Using architecture data to analyze and quantify opinions gives clarity to leadership so they can have confidence in their decisions. And your value is helping those decision makers avoid missteps that come about from non-factual things like gut feelings, misguided loyalties, and even office politics. So now communicate. Your centralized repository has helped you understand your enterprise because you now have meaningful portfolios of connected business and technical components. You've run some analytics to calculate useful business and technical measures and KPIs. So your next value add step will be to make these data points available to the stakeholders who need information and insights to support their business concerns. So dashboards consisting of various types of charts and graphs, timelines, heat maps, and conventional diagrams and catalogs can be thoughtfully assembled to provide stakeholders with the domain-specific and focused information they need. Now, of course, you work with them to understand their information needs, and then you and ABACUS will bridge the gap between IT and business, and giving them the self-serve ability to get the information and insights they want by interacting with their dashboard, and also having confidence that the information they're getting is current and reliable because it's all originating from that centralized repository of data, analytics, and artifacts. So for EA teams, it'd be an oversight to underestimate the value of this communication. And fortunately, ABACUS Enterprise is well suited to help you get specific information and tailored insights in front of the stakeholders who need it. Now, it's also worth mentioning that if you consider some of your non-architect stakeholders to be subject matter experts, they can also be permissioned in ABACUS and can update and even create the information they consume or are accountable for. And they can make those changes right in their own dashboard from a browser. This alone can be a big help to what are typically small EA teams. It's putting that day-to-day maintenance of data and artifacts into the hands of knowledgeable non-EAs. So next, I'd like to go ahead and spin up the live demonstration of ABACUS. And I'll be pulling together the ideas of understand, analyze, and communicate. And I'll talk about modeling your architecture and level 1 and level 2 road mapping. And I'll be taking on business capabilities at the forefront of those activities. So then, considering today that we have a business capability focus, let's start looking at the ways you could model the business capabilities of your organization. But first, though, let's consider what a business capability is. Frequently, I'm asked by clients and prospects, is there ever any debate over what constitutes a certain element type, like a capability or an application? Well, the answer is a big yes. But a benefit of using ABACUS, and one not to be overlooked, is that each element in your architecture can and should have a governed definition to avoid confusion and mistakes. So looking at a business capability and understanding that definition, there'll be in the description part of that component type, you can identify and govern that definition. Here for our business capability, a business capability describes what an organization is able to do to support its goals, to execute its strategies. Another way to think about business capabilities is they're a collection of people, processes, and technology. So there'll also be specific metadata or properties about your components, like a business capability, that you'll want to manage so that at any point in time and in relation to other component types, we can understand the state or direction of that business capability. So we'll capture some things, for instance, like from a governance perspective. For instance, your recommendation going forward, the tolerate, invest, migrate, a recommendation for the investment basically into that business capability, or even the stage. Are we in production? Are we in development? Or maybe we're at the end of life. But in our life cycle grouping of properties, I wanted to look at those because we are going to be talking about road mapping. And you'll have some start and end dates of some certain stages. And again, all of these together are properties that form a basis of how that business capability stands in your enterprise architecture. It's these properties that bring life to roadmaps. So as a foundation, from a modeling perspective, let's go ahead and create a business capability map. We'll create a new one in my folder. And I want to capture the same look and feel of this business capability, this particular diagram already created. So I'm going to choose a viewpoint that has the stencil associated with these shapes, these colorations, and these annotations. I'm just going to give it a name, business capability map. Here's my new blank diagram. You can see it as an artifact in my Explorer, and you can see I have a stencil. So the stencil concept in ABACUS is much like any other drawing tool. But diagramming in ABACUS is native. It's fully integrated in ABACUS. Therefore, I can access existing elements and I can add elements into the repository as I diagram. So first, I'm going to take advantage of this stencil. I'm going to pull over a business capability object. And you can see it's prompting me to give it a name. Well, if I blank that out, ABACUS is supporting, enforcing, and wanting me to reuse something that's already in the architecture. And I will in this case. I'm going to choose just this first one here and get it on my canvas. Now, if I right-click and show this business capability in the Explorer, you can see I'm in my production as is architecture. I'm in my business capabilities grouping, and I have an existing business capability called strategy management. You can see it was created some time ago and modified most recently. So now, while I am right here in my enterprise, I have another way to build onto this diagram. I'm going to drag an existing element onto my canvas. Well, ABACUS knows that there is a relationship to something already on this diagram. Do I want to add the connection? And I think that I do, just to see what it's going to tell me. So in my architecture, there's a dependency between strategy management and risk management. Now, you saw me right-click this and show in the Explorer. I can do the very same thing to my connections. Wanted to kind of drive home the fact here that connection lines in ABACUS are objects in the repository, just like your components are. Therefore, they're reportable. They can have properties associated with them. And this is the means that information from one data, I should say, from one component type traverses through the architecture and has an impact on another component type. So a very powerful thing. Now, if you recall, there were no lines on this view of this business capability map here. So I don't want that here. So here it is in the architecture. I'm going to highlight it and just press my delete key. So it's gone from the diagram, but call out, it is still in the architecture. Now, what that means is any diagram like this is just a view into your repository, into your architecture. I could literally delete this diagram. Components are still there. You're assembling views and viewpoints for specific stakeholders. Some may care to see certain component types a certain way connected with certain other component types. Some don't. That is the fun about creating these kinds of diagrams and being able to show them in multiple different ways. So now I've got another way right here. I'm going to take advantage of another way to build this diagram, more of an in bulk fashion. So we've got the element selection here. I'm going to click that, and you can see that I'm free to choose in bulk any other thing that I want to add to the diagram. So from my business capability grouping, here's my two selected. I'm just going to select this whole business capability and add those to the diagram. Pardon me. So what I want to do here is go ahead and ask Abacus to lay that out for me in just a little nicer format. So with just a very few clicks, I've created this organization's existing business capability map. So from within this diagram, you can continue to model out your organization's business capabilities. Now, what I'm going to do is add a new business capability, and I'll follow that stencil method. I'll go ahead and drag an object over here, and I'm just going to give it a new business capability name. There. I'm going to right click and show it in the Explorer, and you can see with diagramming, I've just created a new business capability. Date created today. So I'm sure you've noticed by now that these business capabilities are one level, and that's by choice. It's not an ABACUS mandate, but we've just called out that this particular fictitious company is deliberate about keeping its business capabilities at a very high strategic level. The detail comes in for this organization within the operational business process components. But if you're more accustomed to working with the multi-level business capability taxonomy, you absolutely can. It's quite simple to model nested components. So I will just demonstrate with the drag method. So you can see my business capability here in the diagram. I'm going to bring it over here and drop it on top of another. And Abacus is going to ask me, did I intend to change that parent? Yes, I did. So now, let me do another quick layout. You can see that business capability is a child. I'll show it in the Explorer of product and service management. You can continue to nest to whatever level that you want to do. So having shown just a little bit about diagramming and modeling out your business capabilities, let's dip our toes into road mapping. One of the quickest ways you can get started road mapping is, even with a small set of information, I'll add, as in the early days of most EA startups, is using heat maps. Basically, you're using your data combined with coloration and annotation to provide a message. And typically your message is about indicating what or should be, or what is or what should be changing. So let's pick on the business capabilities recommendation. Right here, property recommendation. Tolerate, invest, migrate, or eliminate. We're going to understand then our plan or our direction for investment on each of these business capabilities. So for recommendation on investment, we have a viewpoint already defined, and these are things that within your practice you would create and govern over time. But we have a color scheme to indicate our range of options. So let's do here is the business and goals for -CIO for this look and feel, but you can see we already have a business capabilities recommendation heat map here. Now I'm just going to go to my document, or I'm sorry, my diagram, and super duper quick right click and change the viewpoint, and I'm going to select that recommendation heat map. Same data, but called out coloration and annotation in a different manner. What you'll notice is this new business capability that I added did not get a coloration. And that's because when I added it, I did not value any of the property fields. But if I go ahead here and say, I'll match the parent, I'll change it to invest, you can see that my coloration changes immediately. So for my customer management, if I choose to change that from a migrate After investigation, we're going to change from migrate to a tolerate stage, a recommendation. You can see any future changes to the data will then update the diagram's appearance based on the property value. Just a brief look at that. I will look at the stencil, and you can see the mechanics about the coloration. So it's that particular shape for business capability, and you're just setting the colors based on the way that you communicate that to your stakeholders. So as a best practice, having governed and reusable property values, like what we saw this coloration was on, and then associating them with that coloration, like recommendation we saw, there was the life cycle stage you could use, there's criticalities, there's satisfaction. All these things help EA teams establish consistency. And it's not only in the appearance, but also in the analytics and reporting to your stakeholders. So in other words, in the long run, what you're doing is building your EA brand, and you're managing through the management of both the artifact appearance for the audiences and the expectation of the information you'll make available for that audience. So then finally, by colorizing diagrams to reflect a direction or opinion, at a glance, you've given actionable insights and what we call a level 1 roadmap. So now I want to demonstrate this work as it would look in final form as presented to specific stakeholders who might be needing this kind of intelligence. So this is ABACUS Enterprise. It's the web-based portal included with typical ABACUS deployments. And on this business model dashboard, and here particularly, we might be working alongside our CIO, our COO, or whatever role in the organization is responsible to understand what the business is on tap to deliver and how the business is delivered. So on the left, a pretty clean placemat. It's a view that simply presents the enterprise's business capabilities, like we saw a while ago, the level 1 business processes and goals. Then on the right, certain of the high value business capabilities have been strung together to form the organization's primary value chain. And then each specifically associated with the business processes, multi-levels that deliver those business capabilities. And then also later on, to which we would attach applications and systems of enablement. So really, these are quite simple diagrams with a simple message, but to specific stakeholder types, what they're concerned with, what the business does, the capabilities, why the business does what it does, the strategic goals, and then how the business does those things, business processes. In medicine, there's a saying, first do no harm. And that's true also with enterprise architecture. We can inadvertently cause harm to our own reputation and perceived value if we overwhelm stakeholders with too much information or irrelevant information. If we fail in these regards, our potential partners might easily form the idea that EA is just noise. So even if we know it, we don't have to put it upon them. So just a final note on that. When you do grow your EA practice and you grow it alongside your stakeholders, this kind of simplicity and conciseness will become the art in your practice. It's really less a science and more of an outcome of building sound relationships with your stakeholders. Now on another dashboard, let's move more from a modeling them to road mapping them. And we'll use this business capabilities road mapping dashboard as for our discussion. So earlier I mentioned that it's the properties that bring life to your roadmaps. So if you think about properties as data points, ask yourself, what insightful information could you present about business capabilities to some of our business stakeholders that'll help them plan and make decisions? So really the aim of any dashboard is to give a direction setter or decision maker the kind of information they need and reduce the noise. So I'll spend just a few minutes dissecting this dashboard and talk about the valuable intelligence and insights being provided here. And it's all based on the underlying centralized repository with the built-up relationships and analytics. So we have various portlets containing different charts and diagrams, in particular, versions of those that business capability map that we looked at in studio, heat mapped on different properties. And then as our goal, there really isn't a lot of noise going on. The architect assembled this dashboard with a single piece of enterprise, a piece of the enterprise at the forefront of the business capabilities. As a whole, you might call it a 50,000-foot view, because at a glance, you can understand the split of the business capabilities across the identified tiers. You can understand the relative complexity of the business capabilities. In other words, how many total connections from or to do we have on a business capability? So here we're already communicating an idea of interdependency in the enterprise. So next, some real heat mapping. Again, these are that level 1 roadmap. A maturity scale roadmap. You can see some have been valued, some have not. And then what we did over there, our exercise we did over there in studio to look at our business capabilities by the investment recommendation. So maintaining heat map roadmaps like these within any portfolio is a way to provide quick wins with live data, because through colorization and annotation, you're communicating a known state, as in the business capability maturity rating, and then a state change or direction, as in the business capability recommendation. So at this point, I think it's worth noting that on a dashboard, each portlet plays off the other portlets. Clicking any pie slice or bar or diagram shape begins to stack up filters that help your viewer apply more full focus and drill deeper into the architecture. So I'll take a quick pause, though, to show you the few steps it takes to create visualizations like these. Just for practice, let's go ahead and recreate my pie chart here. Let's add a new visualization. I'm going to add a pie chart. I'm just going to duplicate this. So I'm going to work in my production as is architecture. I'm going to choose the business capability component type in my architecture. I want to look at the tier. Tell me something about the tiers. Information tier. I'm going to aggregate those and give me some information about those on my diagram. Click OK. Very few clicks. Every portlet that you see that in Enterprise follows that same format for creating. So you can see the simplicity of how you can start and build out these dashboards for your particular stakeholders' viewpoints. Yes, I'll go ahead and delete that to clean it up. So now continuing with our roadmaps. And onto a more integrated type of road mapping. we have these timeline roadmaps, which also does provide us with some interdependency insights. In our first chart, we've taken the business capability up, so to speak, into the realm of strategic change and transformation. So the rationale behind having a projects viewpoint on this dashboard is that typically business capabilities are born and managed in strategic offices of the organization. And so a stakeholder interested in the future disposition of a business capability would also benefit from knowing the particular strategy or strategic change or transformation that'll have an impact on a business capability. And in the second chart, just the opposite. We took a downward approach to see the operational detail associated with our business capabilities and projects. Now, why would we do that? So the rationale for including business processes aligns with the idea that business capabilities are the encapsulation of people, processes, and technology. So we reveal the business processes to that CIO, COO, or process owner who needs to be aware of any impact to their processes through the strategic impact to the business capabilities that the processes help deliver. So if we use this dashboard then and go and do our investigation, say starting from this timeline for the ERP Tech Refresh project, notice how the interdependencies that we have documented already in this architecture. We have goal, particularly here, notice the business capabilities that are impacted. We have departments that are impacted, applications, databases, servers, and the risk hopefully being mitigated here in this case. But I can actually begin to narrow down my focus on this dashboard. And let's just say I want to narrow to using my business capabilities bar chart. Let's choose just 2 business capabilities. How about I look at my product and product and service management and marketing and sales management. So I've clicked use my bar chart. I've clicked 2 business capabilities, and I've narrowed this down to just the more focused impact. You can see I've got one is customer facing, one is strategic. Here's my 2 business capabilities. So if I clear these filters, let's take another viewpoint from that process owner's perspective. Let's say I own, market, and sell products and services. So I could begin to drill down from this perspective and see my impacted items and my children to that business process. But I think the most, as what I would want to do as that owner is I can click into this on a details page and self-inform, confirming both graphically and then textually that my process definitely helps to deliver those 2 business capabilities, but also I'm informed that my business processes access several data elements. So perhaps I need to be on the lookout for a possible adjustment within my department based on this project that's bringing about a change that may impact my business processes. Now, what I want to talk about here, there's a special difference in our project impact chart here, a Gantt chart, as opposed to typical project management Gantt charts. So rather than delineating a timeline of tasks and activities that need to be started and finished, this timeline is from an enterprise architecture perspective of impact analysis. And so the overall timeline you see for a project, expand this, reflects the life cycles of the directly and indirectly related elements in the enterprise. So these are representing what would or could feel an impact from the project. So a timeline like this works exceptionally well to communicate interdependencies in the architecture, and being date-driven could inform when it possibly does not make sense to impact a certain element. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, if my IDR system end of life date fell within the project's time span, you could form an opinion that the IDR system could be excluded from this project and disruption avoided by this project, because maybe, for example, the element might be decommissioned anyway from another effort. So another thing, not only does this timeline chart reveal the interdependencies and the specific dates based off of their life cycles, if you take notice of the variation of the enterprise elements involved, from goals to business capabilities, like I said, applications, everything in here, it informs teams like your PMO and your change officers about the kinds of cross-team, cross-discipline teams, or the skill sets that might be needed to carry out this particular change. And also what kind of communication is needed to inform of the change. So as a final thought, remember that when you want to create and then manage roadmaps, a roadmap's message is about change and change over time. And many roadmaps are expressed as these heat maps or as timelines, and both of which quite achievable even with a small set of information. So I hope you found this session helpful. And then as you go on and imagine your own road mapping journey, I hope you do so with us here at Avolution and with ABACUS.